I'm Indy Neidell.
And I'm Buns.
And this is the Baseball History Time Machine.
Little, yellow, different, better.
We're Nuprin.
We are. We will make all your pain go away.
True that. Like Nuprin.
Mm-hmm. Like
Do they
Nuprin.
still? I don't even know if they still sell Nuprin. I don't live in the States.
I don't know.
Okay.
And I'm going to start off today by telling everybody that if you do not tell us the thing Roger Hornsby did not do, after sidetracking about everything under the sun for the past two episodes, which is a whole month, by the way, then I am going to kill you. And you'll be dead. And, instead of doing this, then I guess I'll just go on without you.
But you would carry on the podcast.
100%. It's too much fun.
I was just letting you play that out. I'm like, I wonder where he's going like this. So, okay. Well, not to worry. I will prevent all sidetracks until I have at last told you, right?
Good.
Okay, to set up, once again, as any school child knows, Rogers Hornsby had a 5-season period over which he averaged over 400.
Yeah, 1921 to 1925. This is now the third time you've told us.
Yeah,
this.
you remember. That's pretty good, so, right?
That's repetition.
I mean, it's important. It is important to what comes next, but it's also good to keep in mind in general.
Okay.
Now, Hornsby did have that streak, winning all 5 batting titles, topping 400 3 of those years, and nearly 4, winning 2 Triple Crowns, setting the National League single-season homer record at the time with 42, the first player not named Ruth to top 40. His .424 batting average in 1924 is the modern National League record. His 12.1 WAR that year has only been topped by hitters by Babe Ruth and Carl Yastrzemski.
So it was a fairly good run, is what you're trying to tell us.
It was fairly good, yes. He hit 400 over 5 straight seasons.
Has anybody else ever done that?
No.
Yeah.
See, not over 5 seasons, but over longer.
Wait, what? No.
See, that's what this guy, Christopher Sean, shout out to him, told me. And I did not believe him, but it turned out he was right.
No, hang on. I'm confused because
that
is like a staple of statistics. Okay?
He claimed that Ty Cobb had a longer period of consecutive games over which he averaged above 400.
But not 5 seasons.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting.
Whoa. Cobb hit 400 how many times?
3 times. 1911, 1912, and 1922.
Sure, but did he average 400 over all that time? That can't be right.
And it's not right. Funny enough, other than those 3 years in his career, Cobb never topped 390 other than those 3. He did have 6 other years in the 380s.
Okay, but how does the math work? I don't understand.
Well, it obviously involves those 2 consecutive seasons, 1911, 1912.
Okay.
When Cobb hit well over 400, hitting 419 and 409.
Yeah, those are insane numbers.
He also played very full seasons those 2 years and got tons of hits. 474 hits over 2 years.
It gets more ridiculous.
And if you look at 1910 to 1914, those 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm. During
which he hit 382, 419, 409, 389, and 368. That's a total of 2,427 at-bats, 962 hits, which gives him a 396 average for those seasons combined.
I wouldn't be disappointed if it was me, to be quite honest with you. But if he didn't hit 400 in either 1909 or 1915, then how could he have hit over 400 for longer than Rogers Hornsby?
Well, in 1909, Cobb hit 377 to win his 3rd batting title and his only Triple Crown.
But, sure, that's a very good year, but that's not really close to 400. You're still a few...
He did not start the season very well, and he only pulled his average above 300 for good June the 14th.
And he still finishes with 377, but that would mean
that means he hit like the devil himself the second half of the season. In fact, Ty Cobb hit 419 the second half of 1909.
So what we're saying is that together with 1910 to 1914, that brings him above 400 for that specific period.
No, that brings him to 399. But if we go to the other end...
To 1915.
Right.
How did Cobb hit in 1915?
He hit 369.
Okay, that seems very low for this discussion. No offense, obviously. But
he also stole 95 bases that year, setting the modern record.
I thought the record was 96.
I always did too. I always read Cobb stole 96 bases, but BaseballReference.com now says 95, so they must have,
Which
corrected something. Well, anyhow, he did hit just 369 in 1915, but he only hit 335 the second half of the season.
Which means in the first half.
Yeah, Cobb hit 405 for the first half of 1915.
Okay, so together with 1910 to 1914, let me just get this right, and the second half of 1909, that pulls him over 400 for that stretch of time.
No, it does not. No, it does not.
I'm going to kill you. Like, how does this work?
Okay, he hit 405 for that half, the first half of 1915.
Okay.
And that raised his average to within fractions of a point of 400 for that whole period, but not actually 400.
But you said he only hit what?
335.
The second half of the season.
And so he did. But here's what we get. That 405 got as high, 405 for the first half of the season, got as high as 409 at one point, and that point was July 19th, the 84th game of the season. And if you stop counting there, with those 19 days of July added to all the stuff.
So then he averages over 400 for that entire period.
Bingo.
Okay, I am stunned.
It's pretty amazing, right?
It's perplexing is what it is, and people like you and me who are nerdy enough to actually take the time to dig in and find out this stuff.
Well, there's millions more like us out there, right?
God, that's why you love baseball, man. That's why I love baseball.
That is why you do. That's why
you love baseball. So wait, so how many games was that streak? So just
I
put it into perspective.
I wrote it down. 1910 to 1914, he played 646 games.
Right.
The second half of 1909 was 73 games, and up to July the 19th, 1915, was 84 more, and that is 803 games.
That is unreal.
It's actually maybe, or probably, a few more than that, since when I was figuring this out, to make certain it was right, I ran out of steam before counting the individual games, going backwards from the mid-season of 1909 to see if there were a couple more that maybe he averaged above. To see, I just ran out of energy.
To be fair, you've had your fair share of physical ailments so far this year.
No, that never ends. I've been sick basically since the beginning of February. Don't worry about me. I'm not dying or anything, guys. But my point here, well, no, it was Christopher Sean's point. Thank you, Christopher Sean. Is that from July 1909 to July 1915, that is 6 full calendar years over which Ty Cobb averaged over 400.
And no one's ever hit it for a season since Ted Williams in 1941.
No one has topped 400 since 1941. However, 2 players have hit over 400 for a 162-game consecutive stretch since then. Well, 2 that I know of. There might be more, but I know of 2.
Who?
From June 9th, 1985 to June 6th, 1986, Wade Boggs hit 401.
Okay.
And from July 27th, 1993 to May 13th, 1995, there was a strike in there, so it seems like a year and a half, right? Tony Gwynn hit 402.
Padres legend. Mr. Padre.
Mr. Padre.
Mr. Padre. That's not that long ago, but wait. Back up. Did Hornsby have sections of maybe 1920 or 1926 that if you add them to his 5 years, making it 6 years, would it be over 400?
That's a good question, actually, but he did not, and I had to look this up because I honestly had no idea.
Okay.
Remember I talked about his 1926 season as player manager of the Cardinals last time, during which his average dropped to 317.
Yep, that's right.
Now, if you add in his April 1926 to 1921 and 1925, he's still over 400 for the period, but May he dropped off a cliff.
Okay, back up then. What about 1920?
Hornsby won his first batting title in 1920, hitting 370. In September and October, he hit 392, which if you add that, it still keeps him above 400, including April 1926. Okay. But he hit just 333 in August 1920, so it does not stay up there.
How many games in total does he have then?
Well, from 1921 to 1925, we're so nerdy. From 1921 to 1925, he had 696 games. He played that. If you add 16 more for April 1926, and then 29 from September 1920, that is 741 games.
So that's 741 games hitting 400.
Oh, yeah.
Or over 400. Slightly over 400.
Oh, yeah.
What was Cobb's again? How many?
803.
But that's insane to me. How is this not known?
Well, the Cobb thing, I think because it seems counterintuitive, because he only had those 2 400 seasons, and those other 4 years, none of them he hit over 400 or even 390. Just those parts. I didn't know the parts of 300.
So this reminds me of a thing that I can't remember where I read this. It might have been on one of like a blurb on some of these baseball emails I get for like history or whatever. And there was like a thing about Babe Ruth where he was talking about Ty Cobb. He's like, man, Ty Cobb is a prick, but man, he can hit. And that is obviously very true. That's obviously very true. But this is insane to me. Like, so did you just ask like AI?
No. I did the number.
You did the crunching?
AI, that can be fun. I did it the old school way. I did it with a pen and paper, not even my computer. A pen and paper and a calculator. I should have used an abacus.
Look, for everybody out there who likes multiple sports, am I the only person who, when somebody says AI, I immediately think Allen Iverson? It's driving me insane. It's driving me insane. I'm like, wait, are you talking about Allen Iverson?
It would be cool if I could have called Allen Iverson and he'd say, "Oh yeah, well Cobb."
Alan, listen, we just want to know.
If anybody knows Allen out there,
big fan,
yeah,
huge fan,
tell him
huge fan. Okay,
but I would have. I don't have an abacus, but I think it would have been fun to use an abacus.
Did you use an actual calculator?
No. Okay, I did actually use the one on my phone.
Okay, all right.
But not to knock the great Rogers Hornsby. He is still the only guy who averaged over 400 for 5 consecutive seasons. He also actually did do something that Cobb did not do.
Oh, the tables have turned, and what was that?
Well, I mentioned that Cobb only topped 390. Those 3 times he topped 400. But Hornsby did top 390 4 times, all during 1921 to 1925.
Is he the only one who did that?
He is not. Not counting the National Association, he is one of 3 people who topped 390 4 times. The other 2 being Big Ed Delahanty, who we love, 4 times between 1894 and 1899, and a guy who not only did it in the 20s like Hornsby, right, but was a teammate at the time of Ty Cobb.
And who is this mystery man?
This mystery man is none other than Harry Heilmann.
Have we talked about him before?
We might have mentioned it. I don't actually remember.
I can't recall.
Heilmann is very interesting in that he could only win the batting title in odd-numbered years.
What do you mean?
I mean exactly what I said. He led the American League in hitting in 1921, 23, 25, and 27.
Okay, what about 1929?
Ninth.
Okay, but that's interesting trivia. It's just the same. It's the same as like if you look back at like when San Francisco was on their run for winning World Series 2012, 2014. And then in 16, obviously, the Cubs won. But
well, Harry Heilmann's 4 batting title seasons, he topped 390 in all of them, right?
Okay.
However, unlike Delahanty and Hornsby, who each topped 400 3 times of their 4 390 seasons, Heilmann did that just once, hitting 402 in 1923. In 1921, actually, Heilmann beat out Cobb for the batting title, 394 to 389, and Cobb was not happy.
Crazy numbers.
Oh, okay, some complete side note, right?
Yeah.
Remember in the higher career average than Cobb episodes, I mentioned Tuck Turner had the highest road average during a 400 season, right?
I don't remember what it was, though.
No, that's okay. Turner hit 442 on the road in 1894. No 400 hitter has hit higher than that during the season. But Heilmann, in his 393 season in 1925, hit 457 on the road.
No. Whoa. On the road for a whole season.
For a whole season. He hit 457 on the road.
That is mad. And he didn't top 400 overall. How did he hit at home? Was he not batting at home? Or?
He hit 326 at home, 457 on the road, 326 at home. Now, since no one who ever had a 400 season has hit less than 400 at home that season, had Heilmann had a few more hits at home and hit 334 or 335, he would have been by far the only 400 hitter to not hit 400 at that home. And here is some more fun 400 trivia for you.
Okay.
Specifically 1925 400 trivia, right?
Okay.
Had Heilmann reached 400 that year, he would have the record high road average and record low home average for 400 hitter. But that same season, Hornsby had the record low road batting average for a 400 hitter and the second highest home batting average. He hit 478 at home, 478.
That's insane.
And 332 on the road.
Okay, well, I have, just before we go on, I have a theory.
What?
If he had hit as well in 29 that could have stopped the Great Depression. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that could have killed the Great Depression.
Yeah,
But was he one of those guys whose stats always get like a big boost from their home field? Could you say something like that, maybe?
Well, let's start with Hornsby first.
Yeah.
Now, in 1924 and 25, he did hit way higher at home, but in 1921, he hit way higher on the road. So it did vary, right?
Did Heilmann always hit that much better on the road?
He did have the lowest home batting average for a 400 hitter when he hit only 401 at home in 1923, when he hit 403 overall. But
only.
Only. But he hit over 400 on the road and at home that year. But in 1921, his first batting title, he hit like 60 points higher at home. So it changed.
Okay, but tell me about Harry Heilmann.
Slug
Heilmann.
Total Hall of Famer, right fielder, played a couple seasons at first base, and who never, ever made the postseason.
Should have been a Cub.
Okay, the Cubs reached the World Series 3 times during Heilmann's career.
But they didn't win.
No, they lost all 3, but Heilmann never reached any of them.
But if he was with us, we could have maybe won.
Oh, God, if you had, like, especially 29, when you had Hornsby, Kai Kyler,
Bro, can you imagine?
Hack Wilson, and imagine having Harry Heilmann as well. Well, Heilmann's job, when he came up with the Tigers and the Teens, was to replace Wahoo Sam Crawford.
Wahoo Sam? That's not a name. That's not a name.
No, he came from Wahoo, Nebraska.
That's actually a place.
It is, and the 2020 census lists nearly 5,000 residents.
That reminds me. Me and my brother, we were in Australia in 2014. I took him out there because his thing was like, he always complained, I've never been to Australia. My parents took me when, like in 95, and he never got to go. So I was like, fine. If this will mean you'll stop complaining, I'll take you. And we're sitting at Sydney Airport. And this woman comes on the mic and she's like, shh, and it comes on and she's like, could all passengers on their way to Wagga Wagga, please?
Wagga Wagga.
Bro, he just looked at me.
As well,
yeah, and he just looked at me. He's like, this is not a real place. There's no way there's a place called Wagga Wagga.
I know it from being really, really drunk and messing around with the map of Australia back in the 90s when I lived in Prague, because there's no internet then. So there's Wagga Wagga. Yeah.
As you do on a drunken night in Prague. Mess around with the map of Australia. But are we going to talk about like Wahoo, Nebraska now? Or?
Wahoo, Nebraska was founded in 1870, 3 years after Nebraska became a state. Now, it is named after a shrub, the eastern wahoo, according to Lillian Fitzpatrick in her magnificent work, Nebraska Place Names from 1925.
A real page turner, I'm sure.
You know what? I am sure, because it really is interesting, because you can get the PDF online, and I did, and it was really fun. But if you look up the Wahoo, Nebraska Wikipedia page, and you look at the references, you will find Lillian Fitzpatrick's Nebraska Place Name. Really, I spent like an hour and a half going through that. So
there's no way.
It's good reading. So Wahoo was named after a shrub found on the banks of Wahoo Creek. It is the county seat of Saunders County. And okay, now you are going to love this, right? I've got some more Wahoo, Nebraska. For anybody out there from Wahoo, Nebraska, this is free. This bud's for you. I'm going to quote from the Wikipedia article about Wahoo, Nebraska, okay? Mm-hmm. Beginning in February 1996, the city was denoted the location of the Home Office that produces the top 10 list for David Letterman's Late Show. You know, he'd say like, from the Home Office. It used to be the Home Office in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then it became the Home Office in Wahoo, Nebraska, right?
That's amazing.
Here's the thing. The town had lobbied Letterman for the status for months. It had the Nebraska legislature, the state legislature, proclaim Letterman an admiral in the great navy of the state of Nebraska, which is, by the way, a landlocked state. And it inundated him with letters, postcards, and bribes of flowers, clothing, animals, alcoholic beverages, shredded money, and free checkups at the Wahoo Medical Center. When Letterman jokingly said he wanted more, Wahoo sent him a 76 Ford Pinto with a sofa attached to the hood, a wall clock made of cow droppings, and 2 of the town's teenagers, brothers Jeff and Josh Price.
Okay, I think I want to move to Wahoo. The people there sound like a riot.
The people there sound really awesome. I've never been to Nebraska, actually. I've been to Kansas next door, and it was way nicer than I'd been led to believe by the miscreants I knew in my youth.
Really nice?
Yeah, it was... You know what? It was really, really nice. I have some very close friends who live in Lawrence, Kansas, where the University of Kansas is. Mm-hmm. I would very much like to go back there. I think I'd like to go to Wahoo, Nebraska as well. One day when we make tons of money from this, we're going to have a field trip to Wahoo, Nebraska, right?
Yeah, we should. And I mean, but wait, it has to be in the summer. Because what I understand about Nebraska, especially watching like college football, it is cold.
Oh, yeah.
It is cold in Nebraska.
Well, my friends who lived in Kansas there, they said there's 2 months when it's colder than you ever want it to be, and 2 months when it's hotter than you ever want it to be, and the other 8 months are very nice.
Okay. I can do 8 months of very nice. Yeah, I can get around that.
It was. I really liked Kansas.
Okay.
And now there is one thing about Wahoo, Nebraska that is at least, other than Sam Crawford, that is at least tangentially related to this podcast.
And what's that?
The Women's College World Series, the college baseball, the softball tournament.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah. No, well, it's not from there, right? But John F. Kennedy College, which no longer exists, but when it did, it was in Wahoo, produced the first 3 Women's College World Series winners, the national champions in 1969, 1970, and 1971.
All right, way to go, Wahoo. I'll drink to Wahoo, Nebraska.
Yeah, sure.
There we go.
And Sam Crawford's got to be his most famous.
There we go.
The things you learn here.
The things you learn. The things you learn.
And now back to Sam Crawford and Harry Heilmann. Crawford, another genuine Hall of Famer, holds the all-time record for triples.
And how many did he hit?
He hit 309 in his 19-year career, maxing out at 26 and 25 in 1914 and 1903.
26 triples a season.
Yeah. He led the league 6 times in triples. Now, Cobb played 500 games more than Crawford, and he finished with 295 triples, 14 fewer than Crawford. He maxed out at 24, and he led the league 4 times himself.
And they were both Detroit Tigers.
They were, and from 1906 to 1916 were teammates and full-time players.
And that's who Harry Heilmann had to replace. Like, that's a tough gig. That's a tough gig to get.
Well, Heilmann was good, though not great, from the start.
Okay.
It took him a few seasons to get going. He didn't top 300 until 1919.
But then he hit like 390-something 2 years later.
Well, he had something most players, don't have. Ty Cobb as a teammate to learn from.
Sure, that's going to help.
Now, Harry Heilmann actually came from California, and his brother Walter was supposedly the hottest pitcher in San Francisco, but he drowned. He tragically drowned.
That sucks. What?
But in one of life's little ironies, in Harry's first season with the Tigers, he actually jumped into the Detroit River to save a woman from drowning.
Oh wow, what a good dude.
Yeah, Harry was a good guy, and he was a real line drive hitter, like a straight on.
Nice.
Right?
I like that.
Kind of like Hornsby.
I like that. Yeah,
that was a good thing because he did not have the speed of a Cobb, so he really had to slam the ball to get on base.
Well, he sure managed to do that.
The 1921 batting race, right? It's interesting. Pitting Heilmann versus Cobb, but it wasn't really all that close. Heilmann was well over 400 for most of September, and Cobb was like 10 or 15 points below in the low 390s. But when Heilmann won, according to his daughter-in-law, Cobb stopped talking to him. What? He was really pissed off. Cobb was player manager of the Tigers 1921 to 26, and his management style didn't really mesh with Heilmann's personality.
How so?
Well, he did platooning that Harry didn't particularly like, but he even had him benched for part of 1921 when he hit over 390 in favor of another outfielder. But the real thing was the Bobby Veach thing.
The Bobby Veach thing?
Veach was the third part of the Cobb, Heilmann, Veach outfield, which is one of the best of all time. Okay. And Veach really took over the number 2 batting hero duties for a couple of years when Crawford faded and Heilmann was getting going, right? Okay. That's, the gap there.
Yeah, sure.
The thing is, Veach was a really easygoing guy. And when Cobb took over managing the Tigers, he thought if Veach was like angry and all, he'd play better, he'd be more focused. And so Cobb had Heilmann ride Veach like pretty mercilessly.
Did it work?
Well, Veach did have a really good year, so I suppose so. But after the season, Cobb would not tell Veach that it was he who put Heilmann up to the job. And Veach did not believe Heilmann when he said, no, this was Cobb's idea. This wasn't my idea. So Veach wouldn't have anything to do anymore with Harry Heilmann.
What a rotten thing to do. Like that's bullshit.
Well, it is. And Veach played great in 1922 anyhow. Okay. And then after 1923 left for the Red Sox, and Heine Manouche, who we covered in the Three Heinies episode, took over, making another of the greatest outfields of all time, since it also featured, Ivy Wingo and Fat's father. Well, I talked about all this in the Three Heinies episode.
Yeah, and Heine Manouche and the 1926 batting race. Yeah.
Which Heilmann was part of, too.
Yes.
He actually Had a really close race in 1925, though, which he won on the last day of the season.
And you're going to tell me about it?
Yo, you know I am. It was a 3 or 4-way fight, right?
Okay.
Now, on August 1st, Heilmann was hitting 387, right?
Okay.
37-year-old Tris Speaker, the all-time doubles leader, was hitting 402, and charging from the back, the young Al Simmons, in only his second season, who only hit 358 the first half of the season, but hit well over 400 the rest of the way out. On August 1st, he was hitting 370. That's August 1st. Now, in September, it's a lot closer. Simmons is hitting 379. Heilmann's down at 370. Speaker is at 390. And Ty Cobb is also in the mix, hitting 377 as September began.
Man, these batting races are insane. We're never going to see something like this.
But you follow the newspaper every single day.
But we're never going to see something.
Well, it's not as exciting if 4 guys are hitting around 315.
Sure, but I mean, like, if you think about, like, the modern game as it is now, like, the only time I've seen numbers hover around this would be for a very short period of time.
Oh yeah, you mean
when
like
somebody
well,
like
in the 90s you had Gwynn hitting up there.
Yeah, sure,
Larry
but
Walker.
I'm talking about maybe the last 10 years. Like Moises Ballesteros, who is a Cubs rookie, also better known as Mo Bowler, was hitting between 387 and 400.
Yeah.
For a stretch of like a few games.
Yeah, but it's gonna.
He hit that grand slam against San Diego, and then it just plummeted. He's just.
I like the way your whole face lights up when you just say that. When you get to say that.
I love that.
Okay, well, all 4 of the guys in this batting race are Hall of Famers.
Yes.
Now, Cobb's 38, Speaker's 37. Simmons is a kid, and Heilmann's just in the middle of his career.
Okay.
So, Speaker only had 4 at-bats in September, and all as a pinch hitter. And I don't know exactly why. I'm assuming he was injured because I don't see why he would choose to sit this out, right?
No,
so he finished the season at 389. That's where he was in mid-September. That's where he was at the end of the year.
Pretty good.
Cobb did not fade, but he didn't charge either. So he finished up at 377.
Only.
Right?
Only.
Yeah. So it was really up to Simmons or Heilmann or both to catch Tris Speaker. Something remarkable then happened. Well, it happened to Al Simmons September 16th, and it happened to Harry Heilmann September 18th.
What happened?
That was the last day each man failed to get a hit for the rest of the season.
Nah, that can't be real.
Seriously, Al Simmons ended the season under pressure with a 14-game hitting streak, and with only 3 of those games having just 1 hit. He had 2 or more all the other 11 games, including 5 3-hit games and 2 4-hit games, pulling his average up to 387 on October 3rd, the last day for his A's season. Now, Heilmann was at 388 that day, but he still had a doubleheader to play the next day. So Speaker was sitting at 389. So with just that doubleheader to go, Simmons had fallen short, but Heilmann could still catch Speaker.
I just shifted. I'm on the edge of my seat. All right, let's go.
Now, Heilmann finished the season with a 15-game hitting streak of his own, also with 5 3-hit and 2 4-hit games. He goes 3 for 6 in the first game of the doubleheader to pull up to 389. Now, his teammates thought he was ahead of Speaker by a hair, and they urged him to sit out game 2. Come on, man, you don't need to sit out. You don't need to play game 2. But I, being me, looked it up, and Speaker was hitting 389.2, and Heilmann 388.7, 0.05 of a point behind. So it's a good thing for him he did not sit out game 2.
So how did he do in game 2?
He went 3 for 3 with a homer and 5 RBIs to win the batting title over Speaker and Simmons and top 390 for the 3rd time in 5 years.
Can you imagine he sat out? Can you imagine how mad he would have been if
he
found out that these guys were
trusting
the guys in the dugout to do the math? Absolutely,
these guys,
absolutely not.
But every time we have one of these things, nobody sits out the last day.
No,
I remember Manoush was trying to get thrown out of the game.
100%. He's like, I'm not throwing you out. Doesn't matter what you do, bro.
It's like you're gonna stand there. I love that umpire. I can't remember who it was.
Okay, but then he did it all over again.
He hit 390 again in 1927. But in 1927, Heilmann hit over 390 again. But not only that, so did Al Simmons. And that batting race also, for the 3rd year in a row, came down to the final day. At the end of the day, on October 1st, the 20s baseball, man.
This is insane.
At the end of the day, on October 1st, Al Simmons was sitting at 392, and Harry Heilmann was at 391. Simmons had 1 game to play on the 2nd, and he went 2 for 5 to remain at 392. And Harry Heilmann had a doubleheader again, in which he went 7 for 9 with 3 doubles, 2 homers, and 9 RBIs to raise his average to 398 and take his 4th batting title. Can you imagine how this guy would have been in the postseason?
He would have been a freak. He would have been a freak, bro. But like Simmons, like think about Simmons. Imagine hitting 392, and you win nothing.
Well, Bucketfoot Al Simmons, I'll tell you about it one day. One of my all-time favorite players. Also lost a really close race in 1929, but he did lead the AL in batting in both 1930 and 1931, hitting 381 and 390, so let's not feel too sorry for him.
Okay, but are we going to talk about him now?
No, we are going to talk about him another time because I love Al Simmons, but I'm going to finish Harry Heilmann.
I need to hear why he's called Bucketfoot.
I'm actually going to save that because that's
Okay.
2 years later, after this, so 1929, Heilmann began having arthritic pain in his hands, and the Tigers put him on waivers, which is weird because he hit 344 that year anyhow and finished 9th in the league, as I said. So Cincinnati picked him up, and his final full season was 1930 with the Reds, and he hit 333 in 142 games. He retired in 1931. Came back as a player coach in 1932, but he had like 31 at-bats.
333 in 142 games is pretty damn good of his final season. You take that.
Yeah.
You take that.
I'd take that.
That.
Look, if I was playing Major League Balls, I would take that in any season of my career.
100%. In any era as well.
Yeah.
In any era. That is insane.
Well, Slug Heilmann had a lifetime 342 batting average, a fraction of a point behind Babe Ruth. And check this out. In the 1920s, and his first great season was 21, Heilmann hit 364 for the decade, which led the American League. I mean, Hornsby led the National League, right?
Yeah.
And Slug slugged 558 that decade, behind only Ruth, Gehrig, and Simmons in the AL. But Gehrig and Simmons, they only played half the decade, right? Mm-hmm. Ruth played the whole decade.
Yeah.
But Harry Heilmann had a great career post-baseball.
Doing what?
Or post-player baseball. He was the Tigers radio broadcaster for the next 17 years. And he was the first former player to do the play-by-play. And he would throw in stories about Cobb and Ruth and all all the great guys that he played with all the time. So he was hugely popular.
Can we listen to this somewhere? Is it somewhere where we could listen to this?
I'm sure somewhere in Detroit has some radio station. We have to look this up. Maybe
somebody
from
Detroit knows.
No, I'll tell you what. My friend Larry Farber, who runs Larry's Corner here, the shop here,
that's right.
Yeah, but he's a huge Tigers fan. He and I did the old Sunday Baseball YouTube channel together. Yeah. He might know where we could go. I'll ask him.
Please do, because that would be. Imagine listening to that, like listening to the
Harry
broadcast,
Heilmann
and it's Harry Heilmann just dropping in bits and bobs about Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Rogers Hornsby, whoever.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I will do that. That's a great idea. Well, Heilmann. He was very popular.
Yeah.
He got lung cancer in 1951, and he died July the 9th, just before the All-Star break, which was played in Detroit that year. So they had a moment of silence for the great Harry Heilmann, which we will also do in a moment.
Yes.
Okay? But first, remember what Cobb did with the Bobby Veach thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, Cobb was not really the villain people often portray him to be. Not really. He was intense, and he could be a jerk. But Cobb visited Heilmann in the hospital when he was sick, and even told him the news that he'd been voted into the Hall of Fame, to quote Heilmann's Sabre bio. But it wasn't true. Heilmann wasn't elected until the following year. It was a rare moment of selflessness for Cobb, who knew his teammate deserved the honor and would eventually get it.
Wow. All right. So let's have a moment of silence for the late great Harry Slug Heilmann.
And there, ladies and gentlemen, we shall leave you for today.
Thank you for telling us, finally, the thing that Rogers Hornsby did not do, which Cobb did. Hit over 400 for 6 calendar years.
And over 800 games.
And there can only be one Ty Cobb.
There's only one Cobb. And there's only one of this podcast. And to help us keep going, go to patreon.com and look up Indy Neidell's Baseball History Time Machine. And we will thank you very much for your financial support there. And if you want to get hold of us, and you know you do, go to baseballhistorytimemachine.com, and you can do it there, and you can listen to everything from there on a bunch of different platforms. Burns, you want to take us home?
Sure. That'll be all from me, Burns.
And me, Indy Neidell.
And the Baseball History Time Machine. Oh, that was a great episode.